Hello, Radiant Soul, and welcome to episode 15 of the Devotional Drip, where we are exploring your mindset as some of your highest magic. And we're going to do some spring cleaning for internal and external abundance. Happy spring to those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, and many blessings as you transition into the fall for our friends in the Southern Hemisphere. Wherever you are in the world, we are moving through a season change. So take a breath. Find your center. As I'm introducing the drip and orienting our energy to the space, just take a moment to orient yourself to your own heart. Especially if you're catching this live, especially if you're catching this this week, this not the first week of uh, March, but this first week of spring, this first week of the season change, this first week of Aries season. There is a tenderness and a newness and a freshness and a newborn baby energy. So treat your heart with that level of tenderness through this drip. I'm going to treat my heart with that level of tenderness because I just realized I did this last week too, y'all. I forgot my computer charger in the other room. Again, BRB, take a moment to orient to your heart. We're back, and we're giving ourselves all the kindness, all the permission, all of the perfection, the ways we think we need to be, should be, blah, blah, all of that's getting cleared. It's going to get all burned up in Aries season. So now is the time to really befriend that fire. And the energy of the heart is air. So can we work with air and fire in tandem? And when we master working with air and we master working with fire, then we understand that we can work with these elements together to create the fires of our own transformation and also surrender to when they're just showing up in the space. And that's the assignment. Everyone's got personal transformation on their curriculum right now. Everyone who's here on planet Earth is a part of the Mystery School of Life. So we're going to get into our coursework for this next season, and we can consider this episode just like the tone set for the spring or the tone set for the fall, or just the tone set for your next season of life whenever your higher self guides you to this video. Hi, Jess. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. If anyone is tuning in live, whoever is tuning in live, please drop in the comments. Let me know where you're tuning in from, perhaps how this equinox resonated in your system, what's coming up for you right now, what are you intuitively feeling is your own task work, what's on the agenda, what's the assignment, what does it feel like for you right now, where does your higher self want to guide you so that you can take agency and authority and accountability over, like, hey, this is what's on my altar right now. This is what's in front of me. I could spend my time resisting it, or I could surrender into it and co-create with this energy because I understand that it's here as a part of my highest transformation, my highest becoming, and my highest self-embodiment. All right. Today we're into your mindset as your magic, spring cleaning for internal and external abundance. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to the Devotional Drip. This is a free weekly higher self-embodiment and personal development coaching series for creatives, leaders, visionaries, and light workers. The intention of this series is to support you in igniting your higher self connection, embodying your higher self expression, and inspiring your multidimensional self-care practice across the altars of your personal and professional life so that you can meet the call of your divine purpose embodied in your peace, your power, and your higher self stewardship. My name is Sarah. I'm a higher self embodiment doula, multi passionate artist, entrepreneur, coach, and consultant. I offer somatic, artful, playful, sensual, and spiritual portals into self care, self healing, spiritual awakening, self leadership, higher self embodiment, and higher self expression. We go live every Monday at 12 p.m., and a replay is always sent out to the newsletter coven. So if you have not joined the newsletter coven yet, you can do so at the description below. And I always send out a blog with follow-up movement prompts, journal prompts, and a practice playlist so that you can digest and integrate the unique messages that come forward for you through this drip. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. You are your own highest teacher, guide, mentor, healer. You are your higher self. And this lifetime is about the divine purpose. One of the tasks on the altar for all of us in this curriculum is becoming more of a vessel to embody more of that consciousness in our blood and in our bones. And that is the spell of blood, bone, and honey. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and you can turn on the bell to be notified when we go live or drop a new video. All right. Getting into today, we got some folks tuning into the comments. Hello, darling, tuning in from sunny and springy NYC. Just the title of this trip feels nourishing and inspirational. I'm so glad. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm in upstate New York, and the sun is shining. The snow, I think, is finally going to melt. So I'm very excited for that and looking forward to sticking my hands in the soil as the weather continues to warm. Okay, so let's get right into it, y'all. Abundance is on the altar. We're going to set the tone by starting out with one of our multidimensional mentors that came forward for today through my Divine Feminine Oracle deck. And we've got Dearest Lakshmi. Drop in the comments if you have a relationship with Lakshmi, if you've worked with Lakshmi before, if you have any wisdom around that you want to share. I tend to pull cards or goddesses or guides, whether they be animals or elemental, or sometimes it's even just like the code and signature of a word that people within the Blood, Bone, and Honey Coven space have been working with. So if you have a relationship to any of the archetypes that come forward, let me know in the comments, because that just allows us to be in an even deeper co-creative collaborative relationship here, which is just so exciting. So let me know if you got a relationship with Lakshmi, and perhaps even if you would like to drop in the comments your relationship with abundance as it stands right now. Where are you at with your relationship with abundance? What does that bring up for you at this current moment in your journey? And we'll get into that as well in a little bit. But I'm going to start by just reading Lakshmi's card from this book. This is the Divine Feminine Oracle by Megan Watterson, who's an incredible teacher, leader, author, feminist theologian. Highly recommend checking out her work. And this is an incredible oracle deck to work with if you're looking for a new deck. And specifically, if you're wanting to familiarize yourself with more divine feminine archetypes and their stories, I think that this deck does a really good job at breaking down the story. And then Megan offers her teachings in the way that she translates each of these divine feminine allies' teachings and what they're here to offer us. So let's get into Lakshmi. I choose to feel abundant. Wealth is an inside job. I choose to feel abundant. Wealth is an inside job. Maybe just speak that into your own vessel. I choose to feel abundant. Wealth is an inside job. What does that bring up for you? What does that spark within you? Just that initial tone set. That's the frequency that we're going to have this whole conversation from. I choose the power of our choice, the power of our agency, the power of being a sovereign co-creator with a universe that is always here to co-conspire with us on behalf of our highest good. And our highest good cannot be separated from the highest good of the heart of humanity. So therefore, when we thrive, we all thrive. And when we are resourced, we can then actually show up and serve our divine purpose at deeper and deeper levels. And Lakshmi will speak to this in this card, but abundance also isn't only about creating money. That's like one form of abundance. So we're talking about abundance, including money, but also abundance as an umbrella that money falls under. you see, there's a whole spectrum of living an abundant, full life. So we'll let Lakshmi speak to this. And hello to everyone tuning in the comments. Okay. So Lakshmi personifies the splendor and affluence that arrives when we align our every action with what the soul desires most for us. When we align our every action with what the soul desires most. This is so radical because we have been programmed and conditioned to live in direct opposition to that. Which is why it's so courageous to be a light worker, to say, hey, even though there's all of this really dark programming on the planet that has existed for centuries to keep us disempowered and oppressed out of our higher self agency, out of our higher self power, Lakshmi is telling us that we can choose to live from and live in alignment with the call of our soul, and getting underneath all of the programming and all of the stuff and peeling it back to access that voice is a part of what Lakshmi is here to help us do as a goddess of abundance. So reverence for the Hindu goddess Lakshmi dates back to the first millennium BCE. She is known as the goddess of wealth, fortune, and prosperity. Her name is derived from the Sanskrit root laks or laksa, meaning to know, understand, or have a goal. So interesting. Lakshmi is already telling us in creating wealth, in the spell of creating abundance, we have to actually be anchored and rooted in an intention or a belief system. And whatever belief system we're rooted inside of, the lack or presence of abundance will reflect that back to us as a mirror. Wherever our abundance is in our current reality right now is a mirror onto ourselves around where we can now open up to accept more of our divine inheritance. And I actually wrote a note about this when I was preparing for this drip. We are here to live in sovereign co-creation with the overflowing abundance of this planet. That is the planet's natural state. That is our natural state. Our natural state is having all of our needs met. Anything that is out of harmony with that is out of harmony with the pulse of creation. So when we're tuning into a conversation around abundance, we're not just talking about money. We're talking about getting in alignment with the force of life, the force of abundance, this fertile expression that is always emanating from the heart of creation. So your divine inheritance includes all of your earthly needs being met, as well as receiving all of your heart's desires. It's both. But if the ego is driving, then you can't hear your heart, which is why Lakshmi is pointing us to the splendor and affluence, the splendor, the joy, the pleasure, and the affluence, the wealth, the abundance that arrives when we align our every action with what the soul desires most, not what the mind thinks should be happening next. Lakshmi is the wife of the Hindu goddess Vishnu and has many festivals that are celebrated in her honor. Lakshmi is said to have miraculously sprung from the foam of an ocean of milk churned by the gods. So if Lakshmi sprouted from that place, from an ocean of milk churned by the gods, and we can think of milk as food, we can think of that milk as manna, as nourishment. If we arise from nourishment, if we arise from love, if we arise from this impulse of creation to create, as well as our own heart's prayer to come and be on this journey, that's a much more sensual, fertile, feminine place to root into than the capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal doctrine that we've all been served around. Here's how you create abundance and wealth. You have to consent to all of this shit that you don't actually believe, and you have to work in alignment with systems that are actually out of alignment with our natural state. So Lakshmi comes through to quite literally like obliterate and blast through any old stuck programming rooted in an old paradigm. We actually, if you go to create wealth in alignment with a new paradigm, whether that be monetary wealth or wealth of relationships or a wealth of love in your life, or a wealth of even relationship with yourself, what we've been told that looks like is in direct opposition to the way that we actually arrive at that place of abundance, because it's an inside job. Wealth is an inside job. So if the programming is having us go out to do, to achieve, to do more, to do more, to do more, and we're taking all this action, but we're not seeing results, chances are the action is actually out of resonance with what your higher self and soul's prayer is for your life. So again, as we talk about on the drip all the time, if there are blocks coming up on your path and you feel like you just can't move through, chances are there's an initial like vibrational shift that has to take place. And Lakshmi is here to remind us how feminine wealth creation is. And she's like, hey, y'all, I miraculously sprung from the foam of an ocean milk churned by the gods. And like, you too, boo. You too. You too. How often do you connect to the origin of what you come from as the blueprint for the wealth that you can create in your life? How often are you looking for evidence of your family structure and how you were raised and what your programming is and all these mountains you're climbing and blah, blah? Where are you looking for lack of evidence of how this is possible versus, oh, I actually know that I come from this divine multidimensional expression of love. And so therefore I can create through love. And anything that is presenting itself that feels like a block to my abundance is actually here as a part of my initiation, as a divine disruptor in my lineage. Um, and the more we can get in agreement with that, like if you're a light worker, you're disrupting shit in your lineage. So just know that. And it is a big deal, but it's not like you can normalize that in your system. Like, oh, I'm just here breaking cycles and patterns. So it makes sense that my course load would be this heavy. Like, if you're here to be an abundant, radiant expression of the divine, and you're here to serve the heart of humanity, and you're here to co-create in alignment with source, then boo, you're going to be in some boot camp. Like we got to do the push-ups in consciousness. We got to do the crunches. And this is a call to courage. This is a call to courage. And courage is incredibly vulnerable to embody because it means being willing to face both success and failure. And to hold like we don't have control over the outcome. We can only be in our agency and our sovereignty when it comes to process. And sometimes the outcome, even if it's not what we had hoped for, not what we had prayed for, and not what we initially had thought would happen, to praise that outcome, no matter what it is, as a part of your greatest unfoldment, is to be in alignment with this consciousness of like, yeah, I'm a child of the divine. This is my coursework. This is what's showing up on my path right now. I am in a process of remembering. We are here to remember in our human bodies who we are so that we can shine the light of divinity across planet Earth. And that is all of our shared divine purpose as light workers. And then based on our unique gifts, talents, dreams, expressions, soul, and heart desire, we are multifaceted expressions of this, just like the snowflakes and just like all the butterflies with their different wings. So we have this shared union, and you're standing wing to wing with light workers and earth angels across the cosmos and across planet Earth who are facing this coursework, and we are doing it together. And also inside of that, you have your own unique expression that wants to emanate forward. You have your own unique codes around wealth and what that is for you and how to create abundance in your life and what your vision for that abundance looks like. Why do you want abundance in the first place? Whether it be monetarily, whether it be in relationship, whether it be in terms of your creative practice. Why do you want it in the first place? Connect to your why, and then notice how the manifestation becomes a response to your why. Okay, back to Lakshmi. Lakshmi is often pictured in her iconography holding the lotus. This is symbolic of the fact that great beauty arises from the dark richness of the earth under any circumstances. So the lotus grows from the mud. So this is also pointing us to, okay, transformation happens in the dark. Perhaps you were just in the dark of winter, and there was a lot of transformation that's happened. And now you're at the start of this new season, and the petals are starting to come out and open, and you're like, whoa. When you acknowledge that the lotus grows from the mud, then the mud doesn't become scary. Right now, it's about to be mud season here in upstate New York for like 2 months before it's even really like, okay, now it's spring and, we're moving into summer and it's not so muddy everywhere. There's mud. The ice is melting. And you got to put on your boots and get in the mud and be okay with getting some mud on you and understand that the mud is fertile. The mud is part of the growth. And so, if we're scared to get dirty, if we're scared to put in some elbow grease, if we are resisting discomfort, then growth isn't possible. Growth isn't comfortable. Growth is muddy. Growth is bloody. Growth is boot camp energy. Growth is consistency. Growth is showing up. And the mind can only empower you so far without plugging into that pulse of the heart and the soul that commands and urges you forward, because the soul and the heart are not here to follow the mind. That's what the programming of this world has wired our brains and nervous systems to do. But actually, our mind is here to be in service to our hearts. We're here to use this incredible technology of our minds to actually tune in, scan, and work with the circuitry of our body, our nervous system, our hearts, and our souls. So are you enslaved to your programming? Are you enslaved to the mind's impulses and the looping thoughts and the looping of the limbic brain that continues to circle on the same thoughts, or the ego that continues to circle around the same identity until you, Lakshmi says, choose to feel abundant and understand that wealth is an inside job? It's one thing to not have, if we're talking about money, the money to do something. It's another thing to not have the consciousness to use the abundance that's in front of you in alignment with creation, because you can create abundance and you can still be terrified. So I'm actually so sick of people talking about quantum leaping in terms of just making money, because the money that shows up in our life is always in response to our vibration. So quantum leaping can happen through transformation, and maybe the money doesn't show up for a minute. Maybe there's an internal calibration that's happening, but you're still quantum leaping. You're still changing timelines. So just be mindful of that. I feel like there's a lot of language around quantum leaping and the creation of wealth and abundance and blah, blah, and that's a sign that you've quantum leaped. I'm feeling so called to say, if you're watching this and tuning into this right now, regardless of what's in your bank account, and Lakshmi is also about to talk about this, acknowledge how you've grown. Acknowledge how you've transformed. Acknowledge the quantum leap that you just went through in the last 2 years. If we don't celebrate that, then getting back down to get on our hands and knees and do the push-ups and do the work and get mud on our face, it's like, why? I'm just doing this work to keep working and not celebrate myself? No. We put in the elbow grease to reap the benefit of the harvest. It's both. And what I've found in coaching over the years around abundance mindset is the way that folks will use abundance as a form of punishment, whether they do or they don't have it. What are you making the presence or lack of presence of abundance of money mean in your life, mean about you? Are you letting what's happening externally shape your self-concept and your identity, or are you and your sovereignty rooting inside of a higher self-empowered identity and self-concept and taking ownership over your beliefs around wealth and abundance, and then watching your external world mirror you? This is what I'm talking about in terms of the programming that's taught us to reach outside for proof versus looking inside for resource, and then letting your external reality mirror to you the inner work that you've been doing and arriving at. And that is why Lakshmi is telling us that wealth and abundance are an inside job. It's an inside job first. Okay. All that is needed in this all that's needed is the auspicious or divine timing for the lotus to come into bloom. So this is telling us to trust the faith, to trust the timing, to trust that the abundance always shows up. And the more that we can root into that faith, into that trust, and practice that consciousness, the more of a willing, available vessel we're going to be. The vessel needs to be available for the oil, for the abundance to be poured into. So our job then, in terms of abundance, is becoming a willing and open vessel. And when the ego and the mind is running the show, that tends to close up the heart and our receptivity. That feminine principle of receptivity is also shut down. So notice where I'm being guided to say, and this might be potent, notice where you're upholding matrices of patriarchal consciousness inside of you that would have you taking that would have you taking toxic divine masculine, or not divine masculine, toxic masculine approaches to your own journey, process, and consciousness. Like, if we've all been programmed inside of patriarchy, then that means that this programming exists inside of us. And where are you loyal to outdated belief systems that say you need to overwork and push and force in order to make something happen? We are moving, there are divine feminine Christ consciousness codes hitting the planet. We are moving into not only spring in the northern hemisphere, but a spring of planet Earth, where there is this new consciousness in the form of water arriving, and the soil is fertile for new ideas and community and leaders. And so if you're in loyalty to an old paradigm, it's going to be really hard to move forward inside of this new paradigm. This is a call outside of gender. We're talking energetic principles. This is a call to surrender into a feminine receptivity where you're in a state of allowing your higher self and the divine to reveal to you the next step to be taken, the next action to be made as a prayer. This is about going from our get-to-do list into deep devotional divine service. And the to-do list becomes a get-to-do, because even the small action of washing my dishes is a part of creating the resonance in my home so that I can then show up for my own heart, my family, my relationships, and my vocation, right? Like, it's all part of it. Mind, body, home, relationships, soul mission as temple spaces, as altars that you're regularly visiting and watering and cleaning. No dusty altars, especially in springtime. Clean it, clear it, freshen it, and choose what you're now going to. What are the belief systems that you're now choosing to operate from? We're going to get a little bit more into that with our other cards. Okay, so Lakshmi's essence, again, is about understanding the goal in life, all of our divine purposes, to realize the abundance of the soul, to remember that we are love, to remember that it was our heart's prayer to come here and do this, to know that this is school and class is always in session. And what a gift to be here on planet Earth. Even during a time of high sensation and war and annihilation consciousness is how it wants to come through. And to be a vessel of love on planet Earth right now is a high gift and a high honor, to be the cleanup crew, to quite literally be in this space where the bags of vomit are being taken out from the ceremony, and all of the underbelly of society and what's dark is showing itself, as the earth herself has a high heart awakening. And we all have a high heart awakening, and we all understand that we actually are our higher selves. And so as the earth ascends, so do we. And what do we know about rebirth? What do we know about ascension? There's also a death that's simultaneously happening. It's so interesting because I was so directed to wear black for today, but I also decided to find something with flowers, because even though we're in the spring, In the northern hemisphere, there's still a death of the old season that's happening, right? There's still a transitional energy, and there's a leaving behind, and there's a composting of the old that's always happening no matter where we are in a cycle. If birth is happening, if new ideas are happening, then there's also going to be this death that's simultaneously happening. So just because it's spring, just because the sun is out doesn't mean that we're not also still shedding. And actually, Aries season is full of fire. There's so much fire that happens before we move into the pleasure and sensuality of Taurus. The fire of Aries is here to transform. And and sometimes it's gonna get a little hot. It's gonna get a little hot, and it's gonna feel like, oh, this is uncomfortable and the fire is encroaching. But if we can open our hearts and open our palms and understand that this fire is about transforming, and the fire never happens with absence of earth or air, like we have earth and air as a part of fire, then the fire isn't, doing whatever it wants. We're working in our sovereignty with the energy of fire, understanding that we are also the wood, that the fire is happening with, and we are also the breath of life moving through. And so then we have our heart, and we have our solar plexus, and we have our root chakra, and we're utilizing the consciousness of all of these elements together, and we're allowing the earth to show us what's possible in terms of our own transformation, in terms of abundance. If you need proof of abundance, go outside and walk in the woods and look at what's happening in the earth. She's here to teach us and show us what's also possible within the garden and soils of our own being. Let me know how that's resonating. We're like 30 minutes in, and I've only gotten through half of this first card. Okay. These are just going to be long for a minute props. Okay. So, abundance. Abundance looks different to each of us. Some people have an incalculable material wealth, but are bereft of a sense of purpose or a greater vision for their life, and so are left feeling lost. While others are considered poor in financial wealth, but walk around radiating love and the kind of light that has an inestimable worth. Your worth as an expression of the cosmos, as an expression of divine love, as an expression of God, Goddess, Source is inestimable. It's incalculable. You can't actually ever even earn it or prove it. The job of faith is to just know it and feel it. So if you're in any earning or proving consciousness, the task and the assignment and the realignment is to faithful knowing. And to be in faithful knowing is also to not trip out about what you don't know yet or what doesn't make sense to you, because you understand, as Lakshmi points, the blooming and the arriving will come in divine timing. So then we understand that part of being on the journey is also allowing our faith to get cultivated, allowing our courage to get cultivated. I'm almost seeing like faith and courage and like willingness and devotion as these like wands within our like little toolkit. And it's sort of like, what, as you use the wand, as you utilize and activate your faith, as you utilize and activate your devotion, as you utilize and activate your willingness, forgot the fourth one that I said, the more you use it, the more powerful these wands become. The more you activate your faith, the deeper it grows. And what I want to say about that is those roots never actually get uprooted. Once you grow those roots of faith, they're just there. And you sometimes may forget about it, but there's then a constant reorientation that's just part of your devotion. So you're not going to forget about it for too long, because at some point, for me, this is multiple times a day, you're actually plugging back into those roots, and you're remembering and you're anchoring into who you are, where you come from, what the intention is, why you're taking this action in the first place, who and what you're in service to. Who and what are you in service to? Who and what are you in service to? That's such a powerful question to ask ourselves. Who and what am I in service to? What vows, oaths, agreements, belief systems am I in agreement to? If you're in agreement with a mindset of lack, then you're perpetuating that consciousness within yourself and on the planet, and that's who you're reporting to. Do you want to report to that? Or do you want to report to your higher self and Lakshmi? It's a choice. And Lakshmi says it's an inside job. Okay. Lakshmi is the auspicious that begins to bloom in our life when we align our every action with the work that our soul has come here to do. Lakshmi reminds us of the ultimate goal, which is not making money, but being able to know our true bliss. The money, the abundance is an expression of that. What makes us feel lit up like a glow stick when we're doing it? What work doesn't feel like work at all? Lakshmi is a wink to find that vocation, that bliss, so that what comes from within us into full bloom through something we can do and show the world. Lakshmi represents both the gold we can hold in our hands and the gold we can become by doing the work that feeds our souls. When you're getting fed by life force, when you're getting fed by service, there is this inextinguishable fire. Like, no matter how tired I am or what's going on in my personal life or whatever, like, there's this inexhaustible well within me that just wants to like praise God, praise love, praise the universe, praise my higher self at all times. And that is a cultivated essence. That is days and years and months of work and devotion and showing up at the altar and consciously choosing what I'm in service to. Because I'm sure as hell not going to be in service to some old demonic programming rooted in shame, fear, lack, guilt, censorship, under expression. Fuck that old paradigm shit. Fuck that. If you're a light worker, you're quite literally here to shine light on the parts of your consciousness where you're still upholding those paradigms within you. So then you can clear, rewire, and then embody. You communicate in communication, you're communicating through the embodiment of your beliefs. It doesn't really matter what people are saying anymore. What is their body communicating? What are their actions saying? Everyone can, say a thing. Do your actions match? Are you embodying the consciousness of wealth? Are you embodying the frequency of being this miraculous consciousness sprung from the foam of an ocean of milk churned by the gods? Is that how you self-identify? Do you self-identify? This consciousness that's trailing on planet Earth right now makes me so in my conviction around this work and gets me so outraged. Y'all, we are not parasites on planet Earth. Humanity is not a parasite. That is a lie that is told to keep us out of our sovereignty, out of our power, out of our co-creatorhood. We are here to be in harmony with the earth. Mama Earth loves us. But humanity has forgotten. We're not parasites. We are earth angels. We are here to co-create abundance. And we're the cleanup crew. So that means like we got to keep our eyes on our own paper first, and we got to clean up our stuff so that when we show up, we're not pointing fingers where these paradigms are still being upheld and othering and making it that person. And, it's them, it's the other person, it's what's outside of us. It's like, no, y'all, we're all a part of this collective consciousness. So therefore, we're all responsible for the ways that we're upholding matrices of thought and consciousness. And when we take radical accountability for that, and then we go on the journey of having self-compassion and forgiveness for the ways that we're upholding these thoughts and belief systems, then when someone else in our life or out in the world or on social media or whatever is upholding that, then we're not, if your default is to judge and shame and point your finger at someone, then chances are like, that's also what you're doing with your own consciousness. That comes from somewhere. So the more compassion we can have for our own cleaning up that we have to do, when we see it out in humanity, we understand, oh, like I'm doing this work for my own heart so that I can be and embody a lighthouse. And I'm guiding my own heart. And just through guiding my own heart and being in service to my own soul, I emanate out light and I create an impact across the globe. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is spiritual authority. So if so much of what we've been told has been inverted, and there's been this collapse onto ourselves, and the shame programming is what's dominating the planet, then the opening, the expansiveness, the claiming, like I am, what did Lakshmi say again? I am an ocean of milk churned by the gods, milk nourishment, mana flowing from the breast? Are we feeding from the tit of source, or are we sucking on some old fear-based programming? We get to choose. No matter what's in the bank account, no matter where you're at on the journey, that choice is available to you, and it is a split in the road. It's this neural pathway or that neural pathway. Which one am I going to entertain? Through the power of my thought. If our words are prayer, if our words are spells, then our thoughts are prayers. If our words are spells, then our thoughts are prayers. And our words become a part of bringing the prayer of our thoughts into form. And if our thoughts are prayers, then that must come from our heart and our souls. And the mind is just where we're getting clear about what the prayer is. This brilliant mind, this brilliant brain that gets overheated and just filled with like garbage stuff. No matter how we may try to avoid it, not tap into it, whatever, like it's just so present that it's just part of it, like there's toxins in the air, there's shit in our water. So that means that we have to be in a regular practice of taking care of our lungs, our heart, our body, and our minds. The same goes for the brain. The news is trash. Social media has a lot of trash on it. So if you're taking trash into your brain, are you also taking out the garbage and creating space for what now you're ready to grow? Or are there just these sort of garbage piles in consciousness where there's no composting happening? Any old thoughts, even if they are rooted in shame, can still be composted because you are a multidimensional being of light. So your light can quite literally transform anything. You are the lightning of God in a body. So you can zing right through that thought. You can shift it, you can change it, and you can choose something new. Let me just tune into the comments here because we got it popping with the emojis. Hi, Marissa. Rebecca says, if thoughts are prayers, then they must come from the heart. Deeply needed to hear. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, let's get it going because we actually have 7 more cards to get through. So Lakshmi obviously wanted to set this tone. I didn't plan on talking about her this long, but we love you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Lakshmi. Okay, Lakshmi reminds us of the ultimate goal, which is not making money, but being able to know our true bliss. What makes us feel lit up like a glow stick when we're doing it? What work doesn't feel like work at all? Taxes will always feel like work because that's some old paradigm shit, okay? Whatever we got to do, like within the matrix that we're still navigating, that's going to feel like work. But we're talking about the texture of how you're serving. Does that feel like play and pleasure? I actually wrote on my mirror, this was maybe right after Journey and Download, which was so epic, and I haven't even shared about that yet, but it's coming. I just needed to digest. Marissa, I didn't even know that I used this phrase until Marissa told me that I've used it before. The holy pause, the sacred pause. I tend to go underground for a couple weeks after I birth something because I'm a highly feminine creature and I gotta like go back underground and do my stuff. But this is something that I wrote about Journey and Download, about dancing and teaching movement. So this just feels, Lakshmi is wanting me to point to this. This was not a planned share. But I wrote effortless joy, ease, and non-harm. Dancing brings me effortless joy. I want to facilitate a space for people to come alive in their joy, bodies, breath, courage, vulnerability, creativity, deep feeling, wisdom, embodiment, and empowerment. Can you hold a deep space for yourself? Do you need to? Do you desire to? So this is written up on my mirror, up at my altar. And I've just been reading this every time I go to the altar to pull my cards and just reminding myself, like, teaching movement and also doing this kind of channeling work. Like, I am lit. Like, I could do this for literally 10 hours. Granted, I have my big glass of water, but that's how I know I'm in alignment, in resonance with my purpose. It's not easy. It's confronting. I get scared all the time. There's so much that does feel like work. Like the inner alignment to actually step into our divine purpose is work because there's a lot of matrices of consciousness and programming that we're moving through. But the actual facilitation of it, like when I'm actually on here or teaching the movement or whatever, there is this glow stick energy that Lakshmi is pointing to. And I have been able to run a really successful business for the last few years. No paid ads. I show up on Instagram. I'm showing up on YouTube, word of mouth, referrals. Like that's how my business runs. And that to me feels just like an expression of alignment, right? And an expression of doing what my soul feels called to do because I love it, because there's this never ending well of like, oh, this is why I'm here on this planet. And if you're having a hard time tapping into that, I'm going to speak to at the end of this drip, the Blood, Bone, and Honey Private Mentorship Program. There's 2 out of the 3 of those programs that really specifically are catered towards supporting you in getting clarity around like, why am I here? What am I doing? What gifts need to be activated now? How am I ready to show up? What belief systems and paradigms am I shedding in consciousness so that I can emerge and I can have this season of spring in my soul? So stay tuned for the end if you want to hear about that. I've also put a link in the description to book a free clarity call, which is how you actually apply for my private mentorship programs. So you can check that out below if you want to go ahead and like read that, book your call while you're listening because you're feeling in the pulse and in the energy and you're just like, all right, let's get this call on the calendar. I'll be enrolling this week and next week. So hop on it if you're ready to emerge into this next season. Higher self embodied in your soul's calling to be free and liberated and abundant and prosperous and have a deep, deep impact on planet Earth. All right. Lakshmi represents both the gold we can hold in our hands and the gold we can become by doing the work that feeds our soul. So our vocation and showing up in service is actually also part of our heart being prepared. It's actually part of our own soul's journey of growth. How beautiful. Our work should feed us. I get fed every time I show up to feed. That is the natural cycle of abundance. That's what we're talking about when it's like abundance never ceases. Like I am feeding and I am also being fed, and then people are being fed, and then they are going out and feeding, and then those people are getting fed. You see that loaves and fishes action that's happening? That is the consciousness of abundance. And it is sort of like this ocean wave that continues to churn, and this foam, and there's this never ending movement that I want to bring in. There's this air-like quality, the way that air moves, the way that fire moves. We're moving into Aries season. There is movement that's happening. And so as this movement is happening, where are you rooted? Where are you anchored? What belief systems are you moving from? What texture are you serving from? What vibration are you making your choices from and in alignment with? Okay. So Lakshmi is the reminder that true abundance doesn't come from our bank statement. It comes from a state of mind we enter when we know we are contributing great worth to the world in effort of becoming more love. And it's not about being perfect. It's just about showing up and starting. Every time I show up for another devotional drip, this series tells me what it wants to be, what it needs to be, how it can be in greater service. And I've actually had to give up a lot of like the desire to plan, control, contort. How long is it going to be? How short is it going to be? Because I don't want the steering wheel anymore. Give me a heart, a something in the comment if you're ready to like give up the steering wheel to your higher self and then follow in devotion and alignment with that call. And let me tell you what, it's a lot more easeful. That control, contortion consciousness is so shadow masculine, old school stuff that we're not doing anymore. We're not bossing ourselves around anymore. It is done. It is done. It is time for higher self-embodiment. That is the task at hand. No more Miss Bossy Pants to ourselves or Mr. Bossy Pants. Okay. So Lakshmi's little prompt for us is, when do I feel the most abundant? Intention, I choose to feel abundant. Wealth is an inside job. So we're here to live in sovereign co-creation with the overflowing abundance of this planet. Your divine inheritance includes all of your earthly needs being met, as well as receiving all of your heart's desires. It's both. It's both. Your heart, receiving your heart's desires is also a part of abundance showing up. So when the prayer gets answered, praise it. Because when you praise it, when you celebrate it, that creates space for more of that to come in, because you're teaching yourself, oh, like when my prayer gets answered, good things happen. And notice if the answered prayer is maybe different than what your mind or your ego thought it was going to look like. And actually accepting the depth of the prayer in front of us is also a part of our faith getting cultivated. It's also a part of our devotion getting cultivated. If the ego is driving, you can't hear your heart. Remember, the ego also developed those first 7 years of life. If you had some early childhood complex trauma, hello, that's me. The ego and your identity and sense of self was quite literally developing in alignment with what was happening for those, especially those first couple precious years of your life. So you are at that level, at that root, you are rewiring belief systems, thoughts, programming, and because you are connected to your ancestors, like you are a part of also transmuting this through your lineage. And there might be some things that were passed down to you that they're not necessarily yours, but they are yours to meet, anoint, transform if you choose to. And that's the agreement. And that's where the deep bow to the ancestors happens of like, thank you for being so I could be. And now I am here to be in service to my own heart and what is to come. Like I will, there's a song called The Course, and I forget who it's by in this moment. It talks about like, I will be the course. I will be the course. You are the path. You are the path. So that's why when you're looking at anything that feels like a block within you, it's like clearing space in the labyrinth, because the labyrinth is internal and the great mystery is always unfolding. So if it feels like a block, then it is a block on your path, because you are the path, you are the course, you are the prayer, you are the living map of your ancestors and your higher self. And this is where your mindset becomes a part of your highest magic. What needs to be cleaned out right now so that you can click into alignment with what is meant for you and here for you? Aligned action for some higher self agency. This is some holy homework. Write an empowering letter to yourself about where you've been, where you are, and where you feel your higher self calling you. This is like a love letter to your own heart, where you're celebrating the mountains in consciousness you just climbed, what you just moved through. How have you changed in the last 2 years? How have you changed, particularly in this last season, the last couple of months? What is here to be honored, acknowledged, and bowed to? Understanding that part of honoring our ancestors is honoring our own heart. Like, we are our ancestors, right? So, write an empowering letter to yourself about where you've been, where you are, and where you feel your higher self calling you. And notice the story that you're telling yourself about your life. Marissa says, I am the passenger. Straight up, same. And that ultimately is the task of higher self embodiment. It's like to become more of a willing vessel for our higher selves to come in, lead, show us, guide us beyond fear-based, shame-based programming. And as we do that, we're simultaneously healing the programming, the making of the new choice, the action as spell, the doing the new thing, or living in alignment with a new vibration, belief system, thought, or program is also simultaneously transforming the old stuff at the same time. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Transformation happens through action, through devotion, through showing up for the daily prayer, through doing the things that we maybe don't necessarily want to do or feel hard or feel new. Wherever the grit is what I'm being guided to right now. That's it. And get excited about that. Like, let the grit turn you on. I got my own grit I'm moving through right now. And it's like, all right, brush off the shoulders, activate the inner daddy, activate the inner mommy. Let's do this shit. I don't have to be completely unafraid, but I can choose to fear less. And I can choose to trust more. So Lakshmi says, I choose to feel abundant. Wealth is an inside job. Tell yourself an empowering story of your life. Write that letter. I will also, I like my lipstick literally is like all over the top of my lip. Sometimes it happens. I'm going to send an email, as always, with a replay. You'll get a link to the blog. If you're watching this at a later date, look up the title of this video on the blog. It will take you there. And that's our first prompt for this first part of the reading. Write an empowering letter to yourself about where you've been, where you are, and where your higher self and the divine are calling you. All right. Number 2, let's get into it. Disarming and witnessing. What are you practicing in consciousness that is outdated? We have our friend, the rabbit. Hello, little rabbit. Afraid of everything, overwhelmed and frozen. The rabbit loves to remind his friends that someday, this is so wild, that someday the eagle will swoop down and eat him. I want y'all to know that we also pulled the eagle card. So this is really clear. So the rabbit loves to remind his friends. So what kind of conversations are we having with the people in our lives? How are we telling the story of our lives? What are we practicing? The rabbit loves to remind his friends that someday the eagle will swoop down and eat him. He talks and talks and talks about it, so loudly, in fact, that one day the eagle hears and thanks him for the great idea. Talk about like manifesting what we think, right? What a story to remind us how powerful that is. Rabbit energy is alive when we're scared, most often about the future, and we become our own worst enemy. We spin up a dust cloud of fear and then complain to others that we are lost. Notice your thoughts and words, oh rabbit, they shape your destiny. The lost piece is really interesting because the more we talk about how lost we are, or I'll find myself like my ADHD and complex trauma, like I'll make a decision and then I'll like forget that I made the decision, and then I'll act like I'm lost, but I already made the decision and the map is right there. And it happens when I'm not plugging into my higher self and I'm not returning to the altar to be like, oh, right, here's where we are. The rabbit happens when the mind and the ego are running out in left field. And as my yoga teacher, Nina, says, it's like if we have this like inner committee, all these little baby lambs are running towards the road. And our job as a steward of our consciousness is to be like, come on, little baby lammies and rabbits, come on back home, come on close. Because the truth is like manifestation and the law of attraction are actually real. They're principles and realities of this universe, this multiverse. So there are eagles out there who will swoop down and vulnerability is real, right? And also, if we're practicing being lost, if we're practicing talking about not knowing where we are, and we're talking about how disempowered or confused that we feel, that quite literally becomes our reality. There's a more empowering way to talk about feeling lost. And it also looks like resourcing support for yourself in whatever way is aligned for you. Another card that came forward is confusion. And when we spin up this dust cloud, it can be very disorienting. And this card, the rabbit, is actually pointing to frozen, which is our nervous system can quite literally get frozen, locked, and lodged in an activated sympathetic state, especially when we're telling ourselves a disempowering story about our life. Don't act confused. If something is confusing or unclear, then take that to the altar. But walking around acting confused is putting yourself in a state of vulnerability and, quite frankly, out of alignment with abundance. When in balance, the rabbit is a sensitive problem solver and a good listener. So this is pointing to the sensitivity. Especially if you're a highly sensitive being, if you start practicing these thoughts and consciousness and then you start turning up these internal feeling tones, you are manifesting and magnetizing based on that. So this doesn't mean that we're not scared or we're not sad or we don't acknowledge and we're confused. It's just about not practicing that unconsciously. What is it to consciously practice confusion, fear, disharmony? It's to acknowledge that it exists and to take agency over that and to give a fuck about the fact that it's happening in the first place. And knowing that you can talk about it all you want, but nothing is going to actually change until action is taken in alignment with what your system is asking for you, from you. When out of balance, the rabbit over-explains and talks fast to bring into balance a day of silence. So if you're finding yourself in that fear state, in that frozen state, come back to your breath. When you come back to your breath, you come back to your body. When you come back to your body, you're then plugged into your agency and sovereignty. You have access to your mind as an antenna. And you are in authority around the radio signals that you're sending out, and then also around the downloads that you're available to receive and take in. A card, I was prompted to pull a card from my Law of Attraction deck. Actually, a couple came forward. So the first one is, I do not need to monitor my thoughts. This is good for all my overworker perfectionists out there. Rather than trying to monitor your thoughts, pay attention to how you're feeling. For if you should choose a thought not in harmony with your broader intentions, you will feel the discord. And then you can redirect your thought to something that feels and therefore serves you better. You know when your computer is like system upgrade, or it says it's run out of space. It's actually that. When your computer, it probably needs to have a system upgrade, and your computer's like run out of space. You've got no more space for your files. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I have certainly had the experience of then going to delete files, and then my computer will say like, girl, we don't even have space to delete files right now. You're going to need to like plug in an external hard drive and quite literally dump stuff onto that hard drive so that your disk utility space can have the spaciousness to actually delete and rewrite these files. And we have the chaos card coming forward. We also have Layla coming forward from the angel deck. She's so cute. She's just sitting and pondering. And there's this call into stillness. There's this call into when there's so much happening, when there's a lot of noisiness. Layla actually points to there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of commotion, there's a lot of confusion going on. There's a lot of this rabbit energy of like, I'm scared, what's next, where do we go, I'm confused, what's happening in the world. I caught myself yesterday in a vibration of talking about the state of the world in a way that it didn't even feel like my own voice coming out of my mouth. You know what I mean? It's like, we're so sensitive. If you're on social media, if you're out in the world, if you're taking in stuff that's not you, it's going to have to find a way to get out. And so a way to sort of be in an investigation around where we're at in consciousness is like, how are we talking about the state of the world? How are we talking about the state of our life? This drip would be great in tandem with I forget the exact name, but it's something like your words or spells. It was like a couple of devotional drips back. Your throat is a temple and your words are spells. I think that's what it's called. I'm just being called for anyone who this is specifically resonating with, go back and also be with that devotional drip as well. So the system is trying to upgrade. There's no space to delete the files. You have to quite literally plug in the external hard drive to dump the files off so you can have the space to rewrite new neural pathways, to make new agreements. And this is that like cleaning out of the closet energy, right? So Layla, our little angel card here, is inviting you to go spend some time in nature. This card says, spend time alone in nature, meditating about your desires and intentions. Ask the angels to help you gain a new perspective. You don't need someone else's permission to go take care of yourself. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling overheated, if you're feeling overcharged, if you're trying to plant new seeds for the spring or harvest for the fall without creating space to do so first, your harvest isn't going to have anywhere to go, and your seeds are going to be planted amongst a bunch of weeds. You got to weed it out. You got to take it out. Aries season is fire for a reason, right? We're creating the space. We're burning up what's no longer serving. So go dump it out. Simply plan your little sojourn sometime over this next week. Give yourself a couple of hours to do it, and then go in your devotion. Go sit out in the woods. Take your journal. I'm going to invite you to do something that I invite my clients to do, which is the conscious dump. For 3 pages in your journal, write out what you are dumping. What's the trash? What's the weeds? What are you leaving behind? What's some old paradigm stuff that you're not taking with you? Write it out, get it out, and don't judge it as it's coming out as not spiritual enough or not, high vibrational enough. You need to give yourself the space to actually dump it out, drain it out, so then you can fill back up. So confusion happens when thoughts are conflicting. Not knowing which way to turn, choosing between what you truly love and what you think you must do. There are no more shoulds. There are only get tos. Should comes from fear and comparison. So anytime we're shoulding ourselves, it's a fear-based, it's a comparison-based, it's a judgment-based. We're dropping the shoulds and we're plugging into our heart. Your loyalty is to your own heart first. And abundance comes from a faithful knowing that no matter what you choose, Spirit has your back. When you're in fear, rabbit card, you're not actually available to the solutions right in front of you. So Layla is saying, take a step back. Don't move fast. Stay close to the ground. There is this urgency and this energy and this awakening current of like things are moving. Moving doesn't only have one speed. In your sovereignty and your agency, you're also able to modulate your speed and decide, just because that person is cruising fast on the highway, I'm not going to compare myself for being behind, or I'm also not going to compare myself for being ahead, because at some point that car behind me could be zooming past me. So it's not about speed. Again, it's not about this linear, patriarchal, better than, hierarchical, faster, slower. This is about tuning into your own internal speed and how do I need to move right now based on where I am. That is radical authority and higher self-sovereignty versus looking outside for the evidence. Wealth is an inside job. We have to go inside to sort of set our tone and set our speed. The outside world isn't going to tell us. And oftentimes the outside world is going to give you 100,000 free guide advertisements on Instagram or out in the world when you're driving around or on TV or whatever, telling you how you should be moving, how to get to this next milestone faster, how to blah, 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 quantum leap. And it's like, cool. All of that is great. And also, where are you at and what speed do you need to go at? And what is your wisdom telling you about your journey and where you are and what needs to happen next? There's a huge energy of taking a step back and not moving too fast. Your primary obligation is to honor what you truly feel in your heart. That is the task. Moving from that will set your speed. The aligned action for this is to block out a few hours for yourself to go into nature and do that conscious dump. Anchor into the earth, anchor into your higher self. Let the conscious dump allow you to disarm these fear-based thoughts and open up to witness what is within me right now. Notice your thoughts and feelings as they come up and write them down. Don't judge it. Let it out. Perhaps you're going between journaling and breathing and getting up and stretching your arms in the sun and then putting your fingers in the dirt and then smearing some dirt on your journal page and then writing again. Be in a conversation with the earth. I was just reading in the Sophia Code this weekend about Ascended Master Isis and how a part of her divine feminine embodiment, transmission, and mystery school training was quite literally laying on Mother Earth all night with her ear and her heart to the earth and receiving these codes from the earth. So in addition to working with your higher self, when working with abundance, specifically in abundance consciousness, go to the source of abundance, go to the mother, go talk to her, ask her, let her help you, let her guide you. We're not meant to do this alone. I'm going to invite you to get it out, write it out, 3 pages, conscious dump it out, and then go back and witness, like, what's the treasure here? What's tender? Whatever's tender is your treasure. We call this the tender treasure. And whatever you're finding then becomes your coursework, then becomes what you're working in your self-care practice and your personal development practice around. Or perhaps that's what you bring to your Blood, Bone, and Honey Clarity Call because you're applying for private mentorship and you want to invest in private mentorship and you're ready for this one-on-one coaching, but you also want to show up in your agency and your authority. Like, here's my work right now, Sarah. Can you support me in this? That's how clients get the best results. That's how I get great results. With my coaches and my teachers, you got to have skin in the game. You got to show up for your life with skin in the game. A little mud under the eyes because we know the lotus grows from the mud. We know a little blood, sweat, and tears won't hurt. Actually, it just activates us deeper in our power, deeper in our breath, deeper in our capacity, deeper in our self-belief. We have a plague of self-disbelief on this planet. There is a parasitic consciousness that says, I can't. And what I want to say about I can't is it sometimes, not all the time, nothing I'm saying ever here is all the time across the board, but a lot of times what I'll find in that I can't within myself or the I can't with the people I'm working with is it's actually an I won't. And that's important to recognize. Because our willingness is one of those wands we talked about earlier, right? So I can't is different than I won't. And if you can't, okay, What do I need to resource myself with so then I can feel a little more available for this? And if it isn't actually an I can't and it's actually just an I won't and there's actually just resistance, baby boo, resistance is what's going to build that new muscle tone. So lean into it. Let the fires transform you. Let the burn and the holy shake turn you on. Turn you on about why you're here. We don't want this to be boring and simple. If we already knew all the things, chances are your courageous soul wouldn't have even wanted this journey. Maybe you would have chosen a different planet to incarnate into, but you chose here. So be in relationship with this planet, be in relationship with this earth. Watch the way that nature is always mirroring and showing back the natural state of things. So even if the programming outside of us is saying one thing, the dirt doesn't lie. So go get in the dirt, go spend some time with the dirt. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, go spend some time with those dead leaves and crumble them in your hands and then massage that into the dirt and let your body somatically understand like, oh, these dried dead leaves are actually going to become a part of the mycelium network, and oh, energy can't be created and destroyed. Like, okay, cool. This is showing to me what I also need to allow to happen within the soils of my own being, within my own inner garden. How is that resonating? Marissa says, that's my dream day. Same. Same. Give yourself a nice 2 to 3 hours. A nice 2 to 3 hours. It's a nice amount of time to get out there, to be in it, to not have to rush, to do some yoga in the dirt, to do some journaling, to find that tender treasure, and to really take authority over like, it's like you're taking inventory in your house. What are we dropping off at the reuse center? What are we giving for donations? What clothes am I selling? Where are we creating space? Like we have to do that within our own systems as well, or else there's just all this confusion because there's old paradigm stuff and then there's new paradigm stuff. Something I'm noticing as I am mentoring and visiting people's altars, who are going through personal transformation and personal development activations and higher self-embodiment, including myself, is that there's this old paradigm, new paradigm sort of like timeline flip-flop happening where you may be experiencing like whatever is old is going to be really loud and almost like the elephant in the room in your consciousness. It's like, whoa, this thing is old and this thing doesn't feel in alignment with creation. But I've also got all this new stuff happening over here. How do you hold an old and new paradigm at once? You get quiet and you get clear about your coursework and you just harmonize with that next aligned action. There's another card I want to read for you from this. Where's my little action card? Here we go. I let my action be action and joy. Lakshmi also talked about this, right? Lakshmi also said, Lakshmi personifies the splendor and affluence that arrives when we align our every action with what the soul desires most for us. So this card is also bringing us back to that. You have intended action. Action is a part of the deliciousness of your physical world, but you did not intend to create through physical bodily action. You intended to use your body to enjoy the actions that you have created through your thought. So seek pleasure, take joy, take refuge in the transformation. Even in the fires and the pits of hell of your own psyche, miracles are present and possible. No matter how deep into the mud and the darkness you go, your sovereign connection with your higher self, like a beam of gold light moving through your body, and yogic philosophy, we would call this the Sushumna Nadi channel, is always there. So you actually can't get so deep in the dark that you wouldn't see the light. And think about, again, going back to the earth, think about what happens in the depth and the darkness of the soil. There's so much happening there. So when it comes to your action, take your action in joy. Take your action in joy. How can you enjoy the soapy, warm water of the dishes as you're washing them? If you have to clean your house, are you blasting the Blood, Bone, and Honey practice playlist and dancing around and moving your hips? And when you're squatting down to pick up your kids' socks off the floor, or in my case, my husband's underwear, like, are you squatting down and dropping your pelvis and like getting into your hips and then picking it back up? Like, it's that energy. It's like, wow, I delight in the service I get to take personally and professionally. That Isis, that Lakshmi, abundance, embodiment, honors both the personal and the professional. There's no chore too mundane. All the mundane is sacred. The mundane is holy. The way that we wash our dishes and tend to our home and tend to our own hearts is indicative of the way that we are then going to show up and tend to our businesses and our vocation and our relationships. So don't bypass that work. Domestic work has been so convoluted on this planet, and it is sacred, holy, divine work. Domestic work is sacred, holy, divine work. So honor that. Any action you need to take. We can even, for whatever reason, I'm going back to the taxes. Like, we can even do that kind of work in prayer. Like, we don't have to consent to the system of taxes and the financial system and late capitalism as it stands. We can approach that task as divine service to our finances and coming into a better relationship with how we're utilizing the channels of our abundance and where is this money going and how was last year and what came up and how can this reveal to me about how I want to move going forward. So today feels like I just really want to tap you into the potential and the possibility beyond whatever old paradigm, confusion, rabbit, fear-based stuff is in the space. It's clearing now, but there might be a little bit of a storm, and seek joy and take joy in the process. We've forgotten that death is also a celebration of new life, of a transcendence. Okay, number 3, choosing courage over comfort is an act of self-love that leads to higher self-expression, acceptance, and revelation. If you've never seen Brene Brown's The Call to Courage on Netflix, highly recommend it. Okay, so we got the spring card coming forward for this one. LOL. These cards are always so on target. I love it so much. So spring is bringing outward movement. Yeah, spring is bringing outward movement, unfurling, expansion. It's symbolic of rebirth and renewal, the beginning of a new cycle. There's this fertility and this time that's full of potential. If you're planting seeds, then you need to create space in the garden to prep the conditions of the soil to grow the new beliefs. So that's the point of the conscious dump. That's why your little holy homework aligned exercise in that second part of this reading was to go do that conscious dump, to create the space. When you name what within you or who within you or what expression of consciousness within you is still addicted to fear, suffering, martyrdom consciousness, the rabbit that's like, oh my gosh, one day the eagle's gonna swoop down and eat me and I'm so scared and all this stuff is so scary and I'm so scared and what's happening next and oh my gosh, and the eagle. And like this little story tells us, where's my eagle card? The eagle's like, great idea. I didn't even know I was hungry. So don't be vulnerable to the predatory consciousness that exists on this planet. It exists. It's on your social media every day. It doesn't have to be this like dark demon in the corner. I like thinking about demonic consciousness as fear, guilt, shame, judgment, censorship, denial, illusion. Like these are the demons. So be a demon slayer. And if you've never watched Demon Slayer, I actually watched that last spring as an activation, and I'm going to watch season 2 this spring as my little spring activation. It's an incredible animated series. I forget what it's on, but look up Demon Slayer if you like animation and slaying demons. Because Earth Angels slay demons. Okay, within us. We slay demons within us, which is how we then slay demons in the world. So when you name where within you there's still this addiction, there's still this loyalty, this chemical addiction, like this is deep, y'all, to fear, to suffering, and to the programming that like feeds on that and loves that because it keeps us disempowered and out of our sovereignty. When you name that, you can then understand that you're not the fear. You're actually not the rabbit. Our next card that came forward, which is so deep because in this rabbit card, it says, the rabbit loves to remind his friends that someday the eagle will swoop down and eat him. I pulled the eagle. You are actually the eagle. You are the eagle. But the programming would have you think that you're the rabbit. The programming would have you think that you're it. The programming would have you thinking that you're the thoughts versus you're the one that has the thoughts. You are the eagle. You are the eagle. When we clear old and outdated programming so that we can become a vessel to hold more of our higher self expression, then we're working in alignment with the eagle. The eagle is an all-pervading power, truth seeker, and transforms karma. So this again is pointing to that past lives card from last week and this past season that we're transmuting, and knowing that karma is just doing karma's thing right now across planet Earth. And there's a lot of transmuting, there's a lot of working out. So don't be confused about it. Just understand we're moving through a massive planetary paradigm shift. So there's going to be a clearing out of the old and a stepping into the new. How deeply can you activate your willingness and devotion to understand that what is here for you now is perhaps beyond what you've been able to vision for yourself so far? Because when we're visioning from a fear-based, scarcity-based, lack-based consciousness, that vision is going to look really different than the vision our higher self would have for us. So we can think that, oh, I'm supposed to be on this little path over here, but actually that was the path in alignment with fear and underexpression. And we get dragged over here and everything falls apart around us and we feel naked and vulnerable. Brene Brown teaches us that vulnerability is actually how courage is cultivated. So the noble eagle emanates the light of the sun. This great bird is both physically and spiritually strong and represents mastery over the elements of fire and air. This is so deep because we are in the energy of the spring and we're in the season of Aries. Can you master fire and air? What do you need to master fire and air? You need earth, and you probably also need that bucket of water in your sacral chakra that can put out the fire if it gets a little too out of hand. So that means if we're working with the fiery consciousness of the solar plexus and the air consciousness of the heart and the high heart in the spring, in the fiery season of Aries, then anchoring into our belonging, who we are, where we come from, our I am identity, understanding and knowing that we're an expression of the divine, that we are children of the divine, that what did I write earlier about our divine inheritance? Our divine inheritance includes all of our earthly needs being met, as well as receiving our heart's desires. So we're plugging into that root chakra consciousness of like, I belong, I trust, I come from the earth, I am on the earth. Here's my legs underneath me, I can walk forward. Then we activate that sacral consciousness of, oh, I am water, oh, I am abundance, oh, I am creation, oh, I am the foamy, milky essence of an ocean churned by the gods. Like, I can create from water, I can pour the waters of compassion on myself. Water holds messages, water creates, water is life, water hydrates, water grows seeds. So when we understand that those two elements are a part of us, and we don't quite need mastery over it, we just need to understand that it exists, we can then work with the fiery nature of the solar plexus and the airiness of the heart. So that's what this eagle is pointing to. And what's interesting too is this fear of the rabbit, this is very like stuff going on in the root and the sacral, like fear in the root that you don't belong and that you're not supposed to be here and that something's going to eat you and take you away. And then fear in the sacral around like not having boundaries, like I'm almost seeing like a dam being built with the negative or the thoughts that don't bring you joy. Remember, because we're focusing on thoughts that create a feeling tone of joy, pleasure, and abundance. So you're putting a dam up in your consciousness, and you're understanding that you have agency over where you direct the waters of your consciousness, what trail that you decide to follow, where you let that water flow, and where you trust that water to take you. Like, if you're no longer going to live in alignment with this old story and you're choosing something new, then yes, again, we're activating that consciousness of faith and trust to trust where the water is bringing you. And then when we're in that co-creative rhythm with the earth and with water, then fire is not so scary because we've got a foundation that we are working within. And we've got some water if we need to put out the fire, if we need to go take a break, like the crocodile, when we retreated to the cave 2 episodes ago in the devotional drip, that's always available. And actually that essence did come forward also with our card with Layla, taking time to cool off. Look at that water in the background. So don't try to work with fire and air without working with earth and water. It's just, you're going to burn yourself, and we don't need to be doing that. If we get burnt in the fires of our transformation, all right, it happens. But what can you do as far as risk management goes? Like if you're taking risks, if you're stepping out on a limb, where can you support yourself? Where can you resource yourself? Do you want a mentor or a coach? Do you want to join a group program? Are you ready for that therapist? Do you need a new morning routine? What's the grounded, solid action that you're taking in joy and devotion so that you can work with the element of fire, so you can work with the element of air in your mastery? When the eagle appears, you'll soon be thrown into the karmic fires for the sake of your transformation. The eagle pushes us to be our best and brightest selves and stops at nothing to see us shine, which is deep because one of my private mentorship programs is actually called Shine. So if you're ready to shine, and this card is hitting for you, chances are that program is for you. Grasp the sun in your talons and hold on for the ride. You are stronger than you think, eagle child. Deep. You're stronger than you think. So what if you're stronger, more capable, more powerful, more intelligent, gifted, and needed, and belong even deeper than you've ever allowed yourself to somatically feel in your body? All of us, no matter how plugged in we are to our power and our sovereignty, can always, send those roots deeper. And that's the good news. We live in an infinite multiverse. So you're not going to arrive at some place and be done. One of my teachers the other day said, even the ascended masters are still in their own process of transformation, evolution, and heart-based service. So, believe that's possible for you too. You're stronger than you think, eagle child. When in balance, bright, radiant, and challenges. So instead of, it's so opposite to this rabbit. Where'd I put my rabbit? The rabbit is like, the eagle's gonna swoop and eat me. The eagle's like, I'm ready for the challenge. I want to lick this card. It's like that energy of I'm getting the sensuality and sexuality and life force energy inside of transformation. And especially because there's so many beings in the blood, bone, and honey space who are here to embody a divine feminine, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness embodiment on the planet. You gotta let it turn you on. Lakshmi is so sexy. Lakshmi is so sexy and she knows it. Lakshmi is turned on by abundance and holding it, and she's in her wifey energy. And so let your transformation turn you on. Get excited about, I get to invest in support, or I get to start this new routine, or I get to show up for myself at this level, or show up for my family at this level. Whatever it is, let it turn you on. When out of balance, the eagle is controlling. Again, we're surrendering into that feminine consciousness of allowing, of surrendering, and to bring into balance, step into the unknown. So much conversation around faith. I also pulled this Omega card from my angel deck. It says, victory, your desire is coming to fruition. Keep up the good work. It's interesting that we've got the rabbit card, and we've got Layla telling us to go inside and be quiet. And there's this confusion that's getting cleared. And then the sort of solution energy presenting itself in this reading is the quite literal opposite. It's you're not the rabbit, you're actually the eagle. And you're actually not confused. You're actually incredibly, divinely guided. So sometimes we can think that we're here, but actually we're here. And what's going to help us in staying and sustaining this momentum is understanding that we're in a field of momentum. We're in the energy of the spring. We're in an energy of things unfurling. We're in an energy of potential. Mastery over the elements of air and fire is like quite literally part of the work that we do in private mentorship. Because we do a lot of flying around and we do a lot of transformation. So if that call to work with that texture is interesting to you, and feels like, okay, it's time to work with that, that's going to be the texture of the third program that I'll talk about at the end of this drip. That's the most advanced program, the longest program. It's that air, it's that fire, it's that let's step up and shine and radiate. Okay, another card coming forward. This is our last one. Is it our last one? Yes, it is our last one. I want continual joyous growth. I want continual joyous growth. This other card also pointed to taking joy in action. Where'd it go? I'm like throwing my cards all over the place. I let my action be action in joy. I want continual joyous growth. Joy, pleasure, abundance, milk of the gods. Let it turn you on. Let it turn you on. I feel like I can't say that enough. Let whatever your coursework and your task work and whatever feels hard right now turn you on. Don't make it mean that you can't or you're not ready or proof of why whatever isn't going to be possible for you. Let it be proof that God has their radar on you. Like the divine has their radar on you. You must be highly favored and highly chosen to walk through these fires of transformation. Your soul must trust you so deeply in this human journey so deeply to move through this confusion. You're stronger than you think. Where are you loyal to a program that says, I can't? Get honest with yourself about how that I can't might actually be an I won't. And again, activate that willingness as your ticket. When you listen to the messages that your heart whispers, you swim in natural synchronicity with the tide of your life's purpose. Stay relaxed and confident and keep moving forward with happiness and grace. Like the amount of times a day, like even when something inconvenient happens, like I am like praising and thanking my higher self for this coursework, especially when it feels gritty. The more gratitude you can have in the grit, the more transformation and potential is possible. If you can have gratitude in the grit, then gratitude and pleasure is going to feel like some heaven on earth consciousness. If you can find gratitude in the grit, then you're going to make it through this next season in your abundance. But it starts with that gratitude in the grit. It starts with understanding that there's no task too small to be a part of our divine purpose. Even taking the vomit bags out at the ceremony is part of the ceremony. So let it be a part of it. Let it be sacred. Let it be holy. When problems arise, stop and center yourself. Layla's reminding us of that. No need for analysis or shame. So even when you're investigating in the conscious dump, and this next prompt that I'm going to give you, be in a prayerful, meditative, receptive space of listening. We're learning how to listen to ourselves after learning how to boss ourselves around. We're learning how to listen to the truth. Listen to what's arising. Listen to that ocean, milky energy being churned forward within our soul, like Lakshmi called us to. And wait for your next instructions from your higher self. Omega says, your victory is inevitable. This is just the mystery school. This is just part of it. This is just part of the journey. So your prompt for this is going to be, what outdated stories and programs are out of resonance with the truth of who I am as an expression of abundance, health, wealth, and potential? For each of these outdated stories, I'm then going to invite you to write a new higher self agreement in the form of beliefs that you're ready to not only try on in consciousness, but take action in alignment with. Because our little action card reminds us again, you have intended action. Action is a part of the deliciousness of your physical world. But you did not intend to create through physical bodily action. You intended to use your body to enjoy the actions that you've created through your thought. So bringing us right back to your mindset is part of your highest magic. And perhaps even in this moment, let's just take a moment of stillness together. And I'm going to invite you to take 3 breaths on a self-loving thought that feels good. What's a self-loving thought that you can call forward right now that creates a feeling tone of joy in your body? Just practice that. It can be anything. Practice feeling the thought. Practice having the thought and feeling the joy, and connect your thought with your feeling. Understand that they are always in a co-creative relationship. So if you're feeling bad, change the quality and the texture of your thought. This is what in the law of attraction, we talk about moving up the emotional scale. So you're choosing a better feeling thought. You can have the same task in front of you, the same action you need to take. You got to go to the dry cleaner, whatever it is. And you can have a radically different experience depending on what feeling tone you're holding and what you're thinking about that action that you're taking. So then there's this relationship between our thoughts, our action, and our feeling tone. And you can even play out in your mind taking an action from one vibration, from a vibration of fear, from a vibration of lack, versus taking action from a vibration of gratitude. If I got to go to the dry cleaners and I'm in my fear, maybe I'm not paying attention while I'm driving, I accidentally cut someone off, whatever it is, I'm just riffing. But if I'm taking the action in joy, if I'm taking the action in gratitude, maybe I make a friend along the way. There's nothing more I love than showing up at a place and I just get to exchange a smile and a moment of human connection with someone. And when you're not connected to your own heart, chances are you're also not connecting to the other human being in front of you. And then we miss out because we're here to be in communion with life. We're here to be in communion with each other. So don't cut yourself off from your pleasure. Breathe into the orgasmic nature of your life. And that's also a cute little somatic practice. I'll invite you into some breath in your movement this week, but when I was reading Isis's chapter again last weekend in the Sophia Code, she talks about breathing into your orgasms as representative of what it's like to also call in, experience, and allow abundance. So notice when you're in your sensual pleasure practice, do you cut yourself off from your breath? Or are you using your breath as a guide, as a tool to take you deeper? This is symbolic of the way that we can use our breath to align to a better feeling thought. The moment that thought, that little lamb is going out to the side of the road and is going to get hit by the car, us and our higher self agency are telling that little lamb to come on back inside. This is the metaphor of my dear teacher, Nina B, of centering life. We got to center ourselves on life. Where is your consciousness anchored? You want abundance in your life? Then radically devote your mind to your heart. Remind yourself in every moment that you feel that little lammy running out to the road, that thought that's bringing you towards a feeling that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel good, that you realign back to center. What do I believe? What do I believe? How is this thought I'm having representative of a core belief system that actually needs to shift? That's how we harness the high alchemical capital M magic with a K of our mind. We clean it out to create the abundance. We clean it out to create the space. We clear it out to fill back up. And you're the eagle. You're the eagle, boo. So that is our transmission for today. Again, we went really long today. It's a potent time on the planet. So I trust that whatever needed to come through came through today. Thank you for all of you who tuned in live. If you'd like to stay tuned to hear a little bit about the Blood, Bone, and Honey private mentorship program, you're welcome to. I'm gonna start talking about that now. And if you'd like to go ahead and book your clarity call as I talk about this, there is a link to book that in the description. It'll say to apply to private mentorship, and you'll just click that, book your call on the calendar, and we'll go through that process as well in this little convo here. So Private mentorship is open. The Blood, Bone, and Honey private mentorship program is for visionaries, creatives, leaders, light workers, and entrepreneurs answering the call to do the inner work required, the inner tending, the inner garden work required to disrupt and update outdated and disempowered beliefs, stories, habits, and ways of being and doing rooted in self-doubt, self-denial, self-abandonment, self-judgment, and imposter syndrome. Give me a little hello in the comments if those are anything, if those textures of those vibrations of consciousness are anything that you're currently experiencing. So anyone who's there right now, this private mentorship program is going to support you in clicking into your higher self power so that you can serve at a next level of higher self sovereignty, create from a place of higher self knowing, and lead from a place of being your own higher self steward. Like I said, there's a link below in the comments to apply and book your 20-minute complimentary clarity call with me, where we're going to go over your visions, your goals, and any challenges or blocks, maybe some historical blocks coming up on your path. To identify priority areas for strategic accountability, support, and expansion, and determine which follow-up program or tier of service best meets your needs. When you book your Blood, Bone, and Honey clarity call, that means you're ready to rise to meet your own heart's prayer, to be higher self-expressed, embodied, and empowered across the altars of your personal and professional life, and all-encompassing divine purpose. Remember, no task, no devotion is too mundane. The Blood, Bone, and Honey private mentorship program is a trauma-informed, body-based, and spiritually ignited and artistically inspired approach to advanced personal development work that honors the non-linear, ever-unfolding journey that is healing, awakening, and becoming. In this program, you'll go from self-doubt to higher self-embodied in your intuition, magic, purpose, and belonging, self-judgment to higher self-expressed in your unique radiance, self-censorship to embodied in your sovereign self-worth, and imposter syndrome to higher self-knowing. Your clarity call will set the tone for your arrival. I have 3 programs currently available. I have a 1-day coaching intensive where we meet for a couple of hours to support you in resourcing historical, personal, or professional blocks as portals into your highest peace, power, prosperity, and purpose. This session will start out with a personalized mind, body, and nervous system higher self integration. So that clarity and creative solutions can flow through during our time together, and anoint your consciousness throughout your session for weeks and months and years to come. Y'all, I still get emails from people who do these intensives like literally years later being like, that thing just integrated, you know? So this is an intensive, and this is for the person who maybe already has support in your life. Maybe you've already got team, but you're looking for that extra infusion, or maybe you've come out of a place of having support, but now you're ready to like step out a little bit more on your own and do that thing. This is great for someone transitioning out of private mentorship, or someone who recently did private mentorship who wants to come back in for the infusion, but you're walking a more self-directed path at this time, so you don't need like the more consistent accountability. This is a great intensive for that. So we'll do that little integration practice. Then we'll transition into a series of trauma-informed, somatic, spiritual, and divination tools to explore what within you is being asked to be witnessed and transformed into your highest empowerment at this current point in your journey. You'll leave that session with a higher self-embodiment plan of action to meet the personal and or professional aspects of your divine purpose, ready to be recalibrated, up-leveled, and embodied so that you can live in your higher self-knowing, clarity, expression, and power. So if you need the infusion, that immersion, that 1-day immersion is called Nectar, and that will be one of the programs available to explore. Next, I have my 7-week private mentorship immersion, which is 7 weeks of us working together, root to crown activation. This is personal development, coaching, consulting, and mentorship that supports you in transforming as you rise and simultaneously ground into your higher self-trust, surrender into higher self-intimacy, activate your higher self-permission, open to receive a new depth of higher self-love and support, turn up the dial on your higher self-expression, and somatically experience consciousness shifting self-compassion, forgiveness, and radical self-acceptance. So this is like a 7-week rinse, a 7-week activation, one-on-one. We're meeting weekly. And within this program, you'll be arriving at new peaks and valleys of higher self-revelation around who you are, why you're here, what within you is asking to be healed, anointed, and realigned as you receive personalized coaching, mentorship, guidance, and consulting so that you can take your aligned action, as we talked about today, around the ways in which you are being called to rise to meet the altar of your divine purpose on both a personal and professional level. So that is my 7-week program. It is called Rise. More information is on the application questionnaire, which you'll fill out when you apply for your clarity call. Okay, third program on the altar right now is my program Shine. This is a 3-month private mentorship program. This is one-on-one leadership, self-care, and visibility private coaching, consulting, and mentorship for visionaries, creatives, leaders, and light workers, where we will work together to support you in arriving at your next level of higher self-authority, expression, and embodiment across the altars of your personal and professional life, so you can shine like the multidimensional star you came here to be, period. We had Soji in the background on that. Oh, she's having a dream. And she just gave us a little like, yes. So if you are currently like watching this, thinking about it, Soji just affirmed like this program might be the one for you. So we're here to shine, y'all. As light workers, we're here to shine. This program is for that person who's ready to step into that next level of leadership and visibility specifically. In this spacious and sovereign container, we're going to meet bi-weekly. So it is a more advanced container in terms of you have more time for integration. We're meeting one-on-one bi-weekly. And then between sessions, you're doing the integration work. Bi-weekly, we're meeting one-on-one to do the emotional and energetic calibration work towards your personal and professional needs, desires, goals, and intended outcomes. And then you'll have that integration time between session to take that aligned action in alignment with your joy, as we talked about today, towards those needs, towards those desires, towards those goals and intended outcomes. And we work very closely in these private mentorship containers. We've got the Voxer check-ins, we're meeting for the sessions. And so consider private mentorship and coaching, if you've never done it before, like having another member on your team to support you walking wing to wing as you step into your mastery. I am coaching you in my higher self embodiment, and I am coaching and supporting you as a higher self embodiment doula, coach, and consultant in birthing your higher self expression. And we're wing to wing in our mastery together, walking the path. That is the texture of all of my programs, and very specifically this program Shine, because this one is for stepping out into that leadership and visibility expression. So this container also expands across your personal and professional life. So expect to receive coaching, consulting, and mentorship in both areas to support you in igniting, embodying, and shining in your higher self-expression at the altar of your highest divine purpose. And that also goes for all the Blood, Bone, and Honey programs. This is coaching at the intersection of your personal and professional life, because your divine purpose is all of it. So we touch the personal and we touch the professional. Everything is welcome in this space, because we can't separate you from your divine purpose and your soul mission and how you're serving. And the personal life is very much a part of that. Again, today we had a huge energy of like Lakshmi, Isis, this high priestess embodiment of both home life, work life aligned. So those are the 3 programs, and we'll talk more about this on your clarity call as we'll explore what program is in alignment with where you are, the support that you need at this time. So next steps, you're going to click the link below to apply. You'll select your preferred date and time on the calendar, and then you'll receive a confirmation email containing your application questionnaire. The Calendly link will also should just link you to that questionnaire once you book your date and time on the calendar, but you'll also get an email from me. And then you'll complete and submit that questionnaire for review 24 hours before your call. And then we'll get on the call together and we'll review that together. And again, on this call specifically, we're going to be discussing your vision, your goals, and the challenges that you're currently facing. Those places within the labyrinth that feel kind of blocked up and gobbed up and stopped up, so that we can open and create space for flow and newness and potential. And we'll also identify these priority areas in your life right now that are asking for this strategic accountability, devotion, intention, attention, support, so that when you step into your container, you're clear about what you are dedicating this space to. So that is a little bit about the Blood, Bone, and Honey private mentorship program. You can click the link below to apply. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Devotional Drip. Please like this video if you found it helpful, and feel free to share any aha moments in the comments. You can also spread the love. Share this with one friend who arises as someone who could also benefit from this conversation. And perhaps you guys start a little accountability partnership around your growth journey. And you can always take any insights to the gram. You can tag me at Blood, Bone, and Honey. I love to see what's coming up for you so I can support and rally and celebrate you in your expansion. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter below to receive your corresponding journal prompts, movement prompts, and a practice playlist. Okay, y'all, I'm going to go anchor all this yumminess. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all who joined live and on the replay. Hi, Daria. Hello, honey. And I will see you guys next time on episode 16 of the Devotional Drip. As above, so below. Number 6. We'll see what comes through. Many blessings in the meantime. Mwah. You are abundance. Wealth is an inside job.